everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nolzur's Marvelous Tutorials with RealmSmith. We're so excited. We just got back from PAX Unplugged. We were there last weekend. We did 3 days of masterclasses in the Vallejo booth, taking D&D's Nolzur's Marvelous Tutorials live on the show floor, and had a ton of people join us. We had a blast there, and we're back now in the studio with some more. So we're very, very excited about that. A couple quick announcements before we jump in. It is episode 25 of our show, and today we are focusing on vampire hunters. That is leading up to our Into the Mist campaign that we're going to be running. It's our live D&D stream starting January 6th. That is only in a number of weeks. And that is a Curse of Strahd campaign every night at, every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our Twitch and our Facebook and our YouTube. And we're so excited. We have lots of fun, incredible things that we want to announce for that. But we can't tell you everything yet. One thing we can tell you is it's going to be interactive. And so the idea is that you folks at home can affect the story as the players play, even sending them items in-game. Craziness, I know, but it's going to happen. So that's the first thing. Second thing, we want to thank our partners, of course, D&D, for hosting us today. And it's always such a pleasure and a blessing to have them there with us. And along with us during this awesome thing to create the lore that then, of course, our other partner, WizKids, creates incredible miniatures for. And then all, obviously and thankfully to Vallejo for providing us the incredible paint and sponsoring the show. Also, we're trying something a little different tonight. We're actually playing some Sirenscape music in the background. If you guys can hear that, let me know. We will adjust. It's just something we're trying new. The great folks at Sirenscape were at PAX with us, and we talked about the fact that and Ben Looms is actually online right now. Hello, Ben. We were playing some of that Sirenscape awesomeness right now as we speak, and we had a great conversation and just said, hey, why don't we partner also on Nolzur's to bring some ambiance to the show. So I am playing this. We'll probably play around with some other sound set stuff, take it easy as we move in, but also they partnered with us for Into the Mist, which we'll be using to run all of our sessions in our live stream. For those of you that don't know, we have monthly encounter boxes, adventure boxes, I should say, sorry, that we send out to you each and every month. It's an incredible 5e campaign, and we send you everything that you need in a box every month. You can check that out at realmsmith.tv, and currently you can use the promo code IWANTADVENTURE for $20 off your first box, so you can check that out at realmsmith.tv. And the VOD of this will be on our YouTube page and eventually on the D&D YouTube page. So you can, if you are just watching along with us and just enjoying the banter and so on, you can check it out on Twitch and on YouTube later, and follow along with miniatures and paints yourself, which is a lot of fun and great. If you like this and love it, then follow us here on Twitch, and you can also subscribe to us on YouTube, and you'll get notified whenever we upload new VOD versions of our tutorials. We already have 24 there that you can enjoy, 23 or so. Ben from Sirenscape says he's feeling really motivated to do some good painting after your kick-arse help at PAX Unplugged. We featured the Sirenscape guys amongst other people, and I'll talk a bit about that in our classes at PAX Unplugged. So Ben was one of those guys. He did a wonderful job. That we painted the Beholder together, and that was really, really fun. You can also follow us on all the socials at RealmSmith TV. So that is pretty much it. Let's jump in, folks. We have 2 miniatures to do tonight. We did 4 elementals before, but these are 2 different miniatures, but we are going to batch paint by painting similar colors as we go. Hello, Mikey. Hello, Havana Kid. Hello, Fragmentees. He said, Fragmentees says, hope you didn't get convention plague. I got convention plague before I even went to the convention. So Thursday night we got there. Friday morning I woke up with a horrible sore throat and was sick the entire show. But we got it done. We got it out, and we're happy to be back and healthy and all of that wonderful stuff. let's get right to it. Tools list. Of course, you need the Vampire Hunters miniatures by WizKids. These are the D&D miniatures, of course, from the Nolzur's marvelous miniature line. We have a bunch of Vallejo brushes, a dry brush, water pot, some paper towel, and of course a paint palette for mixing paints. And then our paint list, it's quite vast for this one, but it's because we're painting 2 different minis, even though there is a bunch of color crossover. We have gunmetal and silver for all the weapons and buckles and all of that kind of stuff. Black wash for that stuff as well. We have heavy red and orange fire. That's going to be used for Esmeralda's cloak, coat, sort of, trench coat, as well as orange fire to kind of highlight that. Glorious gold sepia wash for some of the golden areas. Heavy sienna leather brown for the clothing and for the hair. Off-white and bone white are going to be used for the undershirts and as well as Van Richten's pants. Blue wash across a number of different areas. Flesh wash for the skin, of course, with cadmium skin, and steel gray for Esmeralda's pants. All right, so right here, I always do this wrong because it's opposite. Right here is Esmeralda and Van Richten. They are featured in the Curse of Strahd campaign, which we are running in a couple weeks. We are so freaking excited about it. It's going to be so fun. And I don't want to give away too much or spoilers, or for those of you that are running Strahd or going through Curse of Strahd right now, Ravenloft is really close to my heart because it was one of the campaigns I played when I was young. And I am really excited to DM it for all of our players. It's scary and it's wonderful and I can't wait. Mikey says he's so excited for the Curse of Strahd campaign, just counting down the days. That's awesome, Mikey. Thank you for saying that. That means a lot. And very excited to run it for you. Okay, so Esmeralda here. She is a vampire hunter. She is also a Vistani, which is or Vistana, I should say, part of the Vistani people who are almost like gypsies, fortune tellers, and all that kind of stuff in the world of Ravenloft, and they can move in and out of Barovia at will. And there's a lot of stats here and a lot of awesome stuff, but we are painting Esmeralda tonight. She looks like this. Awesome miniature, of course, from WizKids as usual. And then she is a protege of this gentleman. He is a Rectavio here, but he's actually, spoiler warning for those of you that are playing Ravenloft, do not listen. Curse of Strahd people, close your ears. He is actually somebody else. He is Rudolf Van Richten, famous monster slayer. And that is the Van Richten miniature that we are going to be painting tonight. So we can talk a bit about them later, but that is Curse of Strahd, and like I said, I am super pumped to run that January 6th, or starting January 6th, and we have so much in store, I can't wait. All right, so let's jump right in. We got lots of painting to do. Hey, Inked in Ignorance. Ink in Ignorance is another one. I always say Inked in Ignorance. It's Ink and Ignorance, and he painted alongside me at PAX, actually. It was a lot of fun, so thanks for stopping in. This is great. All right. So, we've got Esmeralda here, and we've got Van Richten. We're painting them both. They have a lot of similar, and if we were to like pose them like they are right there, they can't do that. But they are, they have similar colors across them, so we're going to try and batch paint that. What that means is paint the similar color across 2 different miniatures, and that will help us to kind of save time and so on. So we are going to start with the skin tones because what I like to do is paint from the inside out on a miniature. So you're going to start from the innermost areas, innermost detail, moving out to the furthermost detail or the uppermost details. The reason is because if you paint, his coat real nice and then you try and paint his skin, you're going to mess up his coat. So we don't want to do that. So starting off, cadmium skin. Cadmium skin is just a layer paint. We're not using heavy skin tone or something like that for the extra opaque for the base coat, just because I didn't want to overwhelm everybody with a bazillion different colors. So I'm going to use a zero brush on this just because, again, smaller minis and the skin is a small area. Going to slightly dilute this color here, and we're going to start to go in and paint these little areas. I am going to bring this camera in just a touch because it's a little high. There, that's better. So again, when base coating, we don't really worry about too much about the outer areas that we're going to paint different colors after. I'm just going in there and blocking it all in I don't have my fan with me. It's actually over there because I packed it for packs, and I haven't unpacked it yet. But that's okay because this is a smaller miniature. The areas should dry a lot faster than some of the larger miniatures that we usually paint on a regular basis. I'm going to go in, I'm going to do his hands, his neck, of course, as I did before. Don't forget the neck, and his face. Grab his hands here, and then I'm also going to do his other hand. And the wonderful thing about WizKids minis, they come pre-primed, so you don't have to prime them before you paint. The other thing is that he's got a cane sword, and the actual cane part is on the ground here. But, you know, it's bendy, so I'm not going to snap that off. It's just going to kind of do its thing, which is great. Get in here, do his other hand. And then once we're done his hand here, we're going to switch over. How's the music, folks? Is the volume good? Is it distracting? Is it inspiring you to play some Curse of Strahd? Let me know your thoughts. And again, of course, I'm live in the chat, folks. I am watching it, so if you have any questions or comments or thoughts, if you've painted these minis before and you have some ideas you want to share, please do so. We are here. So there we go. That is done. Skin on him is complete. And if you have a question, just make sure that you write question in large caps, just so I can see it while I'm kind of quickly scanning through. Ink and Ignorance says he misses the extra opaque paints. They're so good. Extra opaque paints are the base paints in the Vallejo Game Color line that allow you to basically paint a base coat in one pass, which is pretty incredible and handy for, you know, time is precious. Okay, music is a nice touch. Awesome. And you guys can thank Sirenscape for that. They do an incredible job of creating incredible sound sets. So Steve Goodlet says it's an outstanding campaign, and it was the first one he ran when he got back into D&D almost 3 years ago. Very cool. I've wanted to run it for a while. Of course, sorry for Esmeralda here. I'm gonna catch her face here. She's got part of her neck showing and her chest here. So we're just gonna get that in between her shirt. And then hands, of course. And this process, you know, these smaller minis, just a lot faster to kind of lay down these bases because there's such small areas. Makes it also more difficult in other ways, but when it comes to base coating, it'll be a lot faster than for example, base coating a whole dragon with one kind of color. So part of the Into the Mist campaign that we're going to start for the live stream is we want to show you folks how we can paint miniatures in this stream and then literally the very next night use them on the table. Pretty cool. Pretty awesome concept, and kind of close that creative loop for those of you that like to paint your miniatures and then use them in your games. All right, so that is that. That's it. That's all the skin they've got. Pretty covered up. It's pretty chilly in Barovia, frankly. Not a pleasant place at all. Okay. Kevin St. Pierre, welcome. We've got all these Realmers in the house. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. Okay, so that is done, and that's drying. I'm going to let that skin dry for a little bit here. And then next we're going to go, again, inside out, right? So I think I'm going to go with the shirt, the shirts that are wearing. She has like a white shirt that appears kind of blouse through her, under her kind of overcoat here. So I'm going to paint that. Then I'm also going to paint... don't know if he has anything white. His hair is actually going to be kind of that white color. So actually first, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with, and I like to solve these problems kind of in the stream so you guys can see my thought processes and how we kind of do things as we go here. So let's get some steel gray. Steel gray is just another layer paint from Vallejo. Put some of that on our palette here. And I'm going to paint steel gray into the pants on Esmeralda. So that's where we'll start, because she's got these kind of bluish, you can see here in the illustration here in the artwork from Curse of Strahd. That's actually a decent tone and shade for that. I'm actually really happy with that. So we're going to go ahead and paint those pants. I'm going to use a bit of a bigger brush just so I don't waste my zero brush and overuse it too much. I'm going to go with the number, I think this is the number 1 here. Here we go. And I'm just going to go ahead and base coat all of these pants, not worry too much about getting it on the surrounding areas. In fact, I like to overbrush onto other areas, just because, first of all, it doesn't waste a lot of time. It saves time, I should say, because you're not being too careful. So when you're careful and you're trying to do real kind of detailed work, you tend to take more time because you're trying to be precise. In this case, I don't want to be precise. I just want to get the color down so that I can move on to the rest of the miniature here. So I am really digging the Sirenscape music in the background. It's so fun. I mean, if I switch over to Sirenscape here, I can like trigger like thunder. Isn't that cool? Sirenscape is really great, folks. You can go to sirenscape.com and check out all that they have. Their player is what we use for pretty much across everything we do for RealmSmith, including our adventure boxes have custom sound sets that we create for the modules that we have. So I'm also going to use this steel gray for the base coat on her shirt. Now, at this point, I want to be very careful that when painting her blouse, this is too big of a brush at this point, so I'm going to abandon this one, put it back down here, grab my zero brush again. Bruno the Tavern Dog, who actually traveled with us to PAX, has come to say hi. You may hear him snoring or farting or something while I go here. Okay, so I am painting steel gray onto here, and of course I overpainted onto the skin a little bit. Not exactly what I wanted to do, and so I'm gonna have to go back and touch that up a little bit. But again, we're just base coating. That's the idea. The beauty of base coating is that, and Vallejo paint, because it stays wet in the palette, that you don't have to worry too much if you mess up, because you can go back in. Now it looks like she's kind of wearing a one piece. That's going to change quite dramatically in a little bit. So we're going to get her, because we're going to use different washes and highlights and colors, but I just want to use this as the base for that blouse. Come in here, make sure that you get the back side here of her blouse as well as the elbow. Come back on this side too. Make sure you just get all in there with everything. We got some vampire screeches. Distant thunder. All right. Okay. Back on track here. Here we go. Like I said, this color is just going to be the base for her blouse all the way around. So just making sure that I cover all of that nicely. So that is what that looks like. Then, so I'm going to put her down for a sec. I'm also going to use this color for Van Richten's hair. He's got white hair. And I totally got his ear just now, so I'm gonna have to go back in and touch that up as well. But I just want to kind of get in here and put down a decent base coat of this steel gray on his hair. Matches his steel will. Jeez, dad joke. But he's got his... Verona's making all kinds of vampire noises over there like he's feasting. If Ben's still listening, maybe we can record some Foley here for our campaign. He has no respect. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Bruno, stop it. He's licking his paws. Totally sounds like a vampire, like feasting. So gross. All right. So like I said, I'm going in here and just trying to catch all of his hair, including his big chops, his epic sideburns, which are super cool, by the way. The story goes that Van Richten, not going to give away too much, like I said, don't want spoilers, but Van Richten and Esmeralda's pasts and fates are tied. They have an interesting sordid past, which caused her to seek him out, and then he trained her. Which is funny, actually, because now I noticed that he is challenge rating 5 and she's 8. So the Padawan has become the master in this scenario. I'm also actually going to go ahead. Why not? I might have to come back and touch it up, but I'm going to paint his lenses this steel gray as well while I'm at it. He's got these glasses here. They almost look like goggles on the mini, but I think they're supposed to be glasses here. So we're going to do that, and I think that's the only steel gray stuff on the miniatures for that. So that's it. I'm going to let that dry a little bit. Come back to Esmeralda before I forget. Grab some more of this cadmium skin and just touch up that neckline in here that I mucked up with the steel gray. There we go. A little overbrush. No worries. No biggie. There. Okay. And also Van Richten, I messed up his ear. I totally painted on his ear, so we'll come back here, pick out his ear again. There we go. It's a little wet, so I'm getting a little pooling here, but... And his neck, his ear and his neck. There. A little bit more steel gray. Clean it up a little. Again, this is why we go inside out on a miniature. There. Okay, so that is that. Next, again, inside out. His pants are on the inside, I'd say, and her pants are on the inside. So I'm going to go with bone white on this one. And his shirt is also bone white, in my opinion. So we're going to go with bone white. Anybody else playing Curse of Strahd out there, or have in the past? Any suggestions from any DMs out there about what I should watch out for, or make things a little easier for me to run? Things you should focus on? Any of that? Question: what made you guys decide to play Curse of Strahd as your next campaign? So Curse of Strahd, like I said, is quite close to my heart because when I was a kid is when Ravenloft came out. When I was in my teens, that's when the campaign setting was kind of released, and we were playing Greyhawk at the time, and you know, my DM loved the idea of Ravenloft and just the setting, so he suggested we play it, and we all were on board, and it was epic. I still very, very clearly remember, you know, certain scenes and certain moments from that campaign that have stuck with me. Pretty epic, like I said, pretty creepy, and all of that wonderful stuff too. So I've always wanted to run it. I ran it a little bit back in the day, but I've always kind of wanted to get back in and run it myself, and so now I get the chance to do it. So that's pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much the story. I just really wanted to play it, and we also wanted something that felt, especially for a stream, that felt kind of like any moment something could happen, and just turn up the intensity factor in this campaign, to provide some contrast. So that's kind of, yeah, that's why we decided to do it. All right, so that's that. I'm also gonna do bone white on his pants. His pants are like this cream color you can see there. We'll get that full effect once we've had the chance to wash it with a sepia wash. That'll really bring out those kind of earthy, warm tones once we're able to do that. So I'm just gonna base coat it with bone white right now, then hit it with a wash, and you'll see how they really come to life at that point. Up here, again, not too concerned about surrounding areas right now because it's the only area of the miniature. It's the only area in the area of that miniature that is going to be that color. So, and kind of the first color that I've actually painted there. There we go. Bottom of the pants. Inside leg, there we go. That's what it looks like, just some bone white in the inside to cover the shirt there. He's also got a red like ascot kind of scarf in there. It's the only part of kind of color that he has on him, which is the same color as Esmeralda's overcoat. So we're going to double duty on that, and hit that next. So I'm going to put him down. Grab Esmeralda, we're going to get heavy red. Heavy red, again, is one of those extra opaque colors. Hopefully that answered why we're playing Curse of Strahd. Just like I said, really close to my heart, and very exciting, and wanted a bit of a change in tone from our other campaigns. And then we're going to do 3-month campaigns, runs, basically, kind of like a series or a season, so that people don't get lost. They don't come in at like episode 30 and don't know what's happened, have to watch 30 episodes. It's a lot more kind of bite-sized, and they can kind of jump in and jump out on whatever season kind of fits what they like, and we can try different things a little quicker and iterate a bit and all that kind of stuff. So that's the plan so far, currently, I should say. So I'm just using a number 2 brush to base coat her overcoat because it's a large area, gets it done faster, and then I'll probably switch to my 0 to do all the detail work here. But this is where she really starts to come to life, as this red overcoat. And now in the subject matter over here, or the reference from Curse of Strahd, her coat is a little orange, so that's why we have orange fire as well. We're going to use that to really bring out some of that orange tone after, but this is going to be a really great base. Provide a really great base. I'm being careful now. I'm starting to get closer to the areas I've already painted. Also want to paint, obviously, the under area of her coat. So I'm going to carefully put my brush in here. It's loaded a bit too heavy with paint, so I'm just gonna take a little bit of it off of my palette because I want to slide it basically in between the pants and the cloak here to paint just the cloak and not get the pants, which is always fun and can be tough to do, but it looks like it worked out here. Good. Okay, so that's the majority of her overcoat, I'm going to go in with a zero brush now to really get in the nooks and crannies here and do some of that detail work. Hello, Melanie. My beloved Melanie has joined us. And in front of everybody, I'm going to tell you that I've been trying to get her to play on our stream. And I think that everybody should tell her how much she should play and how wonderful she'd be. No pressure. That's good. As far as DMing the campaign, I feel it's really important to run it different from other D&D campaigns. Less combat and better to build up the tension and scare your players. Agreed. This is the opportunity. That's the beauty of Curse of Strahd, is that it's not about Mel just sent me a mad face. The beauty of Curse of Strahd is that it's less about combat and more about the mood and the role play, and you have a really amazing kind of canvas to build this incredible story. And there's a depth to Curse of Strahd that is required to really get it across. So almost poetic in a way. So I'm very excited for that challenge. Okay, now I'm being incredibly careful here because I do not want to get the steel gray area of the shirt. So I'm being as careful as I can to just get the overcoat. She's got these kind of billowing sleeves here. So we'll paint around here, up this collar. She's super cool. Love that she dual wields with an axe and a sword. That's awesome. Of course, her weapons have all kinds of abilities and so on that I won't give away in case my players are watching, one of them being potentially Melanie, if she doesn't kill me first. And then she also has like a sash here across her belt. On the back of the blister, it shows it's red too, so I'm just going to go ahead and paint that as well. Kind of shows that it's the same color. Maybe I'll leave it more red than orange just to differentiate it a little bit from the rest of the overcoat. Right there. Okay. And I think her belt will be leather, kind of leather colored, like her boot will be. So that is that for the overcoat on that side. Nope, it's not. I missed part of the sleeve here. At the bottom of the sleeve. Man, I had such a great time at PAX. We ran 3 classes a day on the show floor in the Vallejo booth, and we were sold out, folks, every single class. In fact, the exhibit hall would open at 10 a.m. and at 10:02 we had people running to our booth to be in line to be able to register for that day, and we turned away maybe 20 to 30 people per class throughout the whole show. So huge success. In fact, the show was telling us that we were breaking fire regulations because our line was covering and blocking laneways. So huge success. We're so thankful. We upped our class by like 30 people for that show, and it still wasn't enough space. So we're in talks obviously to make it even bigger and badder and better next year. So let's so stay tuned. Or even not necessarily next year, but just our next shows, because it's doing so well. So we thank everybody for coming, and all of our guest hosts too. Rick Ankney from Rick Rolls America, the Dungeon Dudes joined us. Nerdarchy guys were painting with us as well. Nora from Have Dice Will Travel and other streams. Like I said, Sirenscape guys were with us, and then we had some fun guests, a surprise kind of last-minute guests like Ink and Ignorance, and so on. So I hope I didn't forget anybody, but thank you so much, everyone, for for joining us. We also want to do her kind of bracers. She's got these bracers you can see there. They're also that same orangey color, and it looks like they go right up to her elbow. So you want to make sure you get the right kind of texture here, that base color there. And of course we're going to use washes too. All right. Also trying to paint the inside of this bracer, which is fun, trying not to catch the skin on the inside there, but that worked. This is how she's looking so far, folks. So again, base coating all of the areas that are going to be that orangey color with heavy red, which is, like I said, an extra opaque paint for the base. I keep getting mad faces here from Mel, but everyone just needs to tell her. She played one session with us. She thinks she's not whatever, but she's amazing. So I think she's amazing, and everybody who watched the last stream she was on thought she was amazing. So there, take that. And yes, this is completely me manipulating you into playing, because now everybody wants you to play. All right. Okay, almost done the red here. Phew. All right, so that, haha. Missed one area of red orange, and that is the bandana on her head. She's got a little kind of like headband bandana area on her head. I'm just gonna go ahead and do that as well. Kind of a Rambo vibe going. Not really, but I like to think of her that way. Well, I don't know what you're talking about. That was supposed to be my Sylvester Stallone. That was horrible. Let's not do that voice again, Jay. Mental note. Okay, there we go. Red. And I am rubbing off some of the red on the overcoat while I handle the miniature. That's okay, though, too. That'll sort itself out after. Okay. I also want to take a little bit of red as well and paint that little ascot that Van Richten has, the little scarf that he has inside. Oh, it's wet. Too wet, and now it's bleeding, folks. That's what you gotta be careful when you wash your brush. Make sure you dry it, especially when you're doing detail work where you don't want the paint to run, because it's gonna run into all your other colors. And that's exactly what's happening here. This is such a small little area. I'm gonna have to touch it up again with bone white, which I thought I might have to do anyways, but there. So that's just his little ascot area. But again, a lot of that will be sorted out in washes a little later. Okay. Now, I'm just gonna take a look at the miniature, find out if I need any washes on it and where, and if I want to stop here or continue with some of my base coats. I think I want to continue with my base coats. I want to get all the base coating done, so if I make any mistakes, it's easy to go back and kind of fix them, if that makes sense. And I think that makes sense. So, let's see here. Lots of people watching tonight. It's awesome. Thank you for joining us, folks. Leather brown, I think, is the next one I'm going to do. Leather brown is going to be a pretty large area. It's going to cover a large area, especially on Van Richten. You can see most of his clothing is kind of this khaki leather brown color. So I'm just going to go ahead and basically base coat all of it. And he's got these daggers and stuff along his coat, which is cool because we can go back in and touch those up later. But that is going to be like that. We're basically going to go through and base coat his entire coat in this color. And then we can come back and hit some of the details. Being careful not to hit the other areas like the steel gray here along his hair. But we also don't want to leave lines of, you want to get nice and close, because you definitely don't want to leave little lines of primer showing through. Though, one thing is helpful is that the washes that we're going to add are actually quite forgiving that way. They tend to cover up a lot of kind of mistakes in the recesses, areas that you forget to paint. They tend to seep in there and do that, but you don't want to depend on that. That's for sure. You want to do your best to kind of cover all of the seams the best that you can. I can't wait. And again, with minis like this, and for example, the Frost Giant, we were running Storm King's Thunder, and the Harshnag miniature, which is the unpainted Frost Giant mini from WizKids. We did 3 sessions on that just because it was a NPC that you would see fairly often. Typically with D&D minis, I like to paint them fairly quickly. And again, I spend the 2 hours on the show to paint them, and that's it. The reason I do that is because there's so many to paint. If this was like more like wargaming, then I would want to spend more time on an army that I'm going to use basically every single time I'm on the table or at the table. But with these, you know, how often is your group going to see a dragon? So I want to paint that dragon with that in mind, with the idea of it needs to look good at 2 feet, and the more painted miniatures at my table, the better. And so spend that time where you would be perfecting that dragon to paint other creatures and miniatures that you want at your table. That's kind of that's my rule of thumb. Again, I'm not going to win any contests with these. I just want to get them tabletop ready on the table, impressing my players, scaring the heck out of them. But with NPCs like this, a little bit more time and care. If they're going to be on the table for, you know, multiple sessions or play along with the characters or showpieces. Next week, we're going to be painting Strahd, the vampire. So tune in next week on Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to be painting the Man of the Hour, the centerpiece of this campaign, and I'm very excited about that. Jonathan says, I can't see what you're doing. It's too far away from the camera. I know, folks, I'm sorry. With these smaller miniatures, it's a little difficult to see. I'll try and hold it a little closer to the camera. I apologize for that. I try and show you after the fact, but it is tough. So basically, I'm painting his coat all the way around, staying away from the areas that I've already painted. Do you have any plans of painting the Drider miniature in the future? I do now. This is also, guys, your opportunity to tell me what you'd like me to paint. There's a huge line of Nolzur's miniatures out there, so if the Drider is one of them, I will absolutely put that on the list for January. If you guys have any other thoughts or suggestions, please let me know. Get your requests in, and we'll be sure to try and get them on the schedule. I do release the schedule kind of at the beginning of the month or just before the beginning of the month, so you guys know what's coming up, so you can kind of go out, shop for your minis, and prepare. So Drider would be Succubus. Succubus was actually on the schedule for this month. We're featuring Succubus and an Incubus actually in one of our adventure boxes coming up. So I wanted to create a tutorial for those, but they got bumped just because I wanted to do some Curse of Strahd stuff. But Succubus we'll do the Succubus and the Incubus in the same session. So we will do those in January as well, if you guys would like. So Succubus, Incubus, Drider. You guys should see some of the minis in the next wave, which I can't talk about right now, but man, they have some pretty awesome stuff coming out. Strahd's just misunderstood. He's a true romantic at heart, Steve says. You know what? It's true. Mikey says that the WizKids announced the young golden red dragon. Well, folks, now I can talk about it. I love the gold dragon, and the red dragon is incoming. So keep your eyes out, folks, for the next wave, because you finally get your young red dragon and your gold dragon. So they kept obviously the pinnacle of those to for last. Oh, cool! Fragmentees ordered his first box when we had our Black Friday sale. Thank you, man. Man or what? I don't know, Fragmentees. If you are male or female or what, so just let me know. But thank you for ordering our box, and we're very excited to get that to you. In fact, it's probably going to go out in next week or two. So keep an eye out for that. Again, folks, if you're interested in our adventure boxes, RealmSmith.tv, we have a ongoing monthly adventure box that carries on a campaign over 6 months, or an adventure over 6 months. And you subscribe, you get a box every single month with everything that you need to run the campaign, including scented candles, a Sirenscape sound set, items to give to your players, and all that fun stuff. It's got a module and miniatures and terrain and all of that. So anyways, check that out at RealmSmith.tv. And right now, if you use the promo code IWantAdventure, you get $20 off your first box. So you guys can check that out. Cool. All right, there we go. That is so far. I know you folks can't see really because the camera is a little far. You know what? I'll bring the camera even closer if I can to what I'm doing here. I know that people are complaining a little bit about how far the camera is, so we're just going to bring it down even more, like that. But yeah, whenever those the Young and Gold Dragon come out, of course we'll be doing tutorials for those on the show. So stay tuned for that. I think this is all part of his jacket in here. All these kind of like, I want to think that this is, all these straps and such are part of this kind of under vest. And I think his under vest as well is like, I can't really see the can't really see it on the screen there, but pretty sure looks like he's got a white shirt under it. You can't really see his under vest area, and I don't have the, you know what, maybe I'll just take a look here really quick. So that I can find out exactly what we're looking at here. Vampire Hunter. A really cool site for you guys is upm.wizkids.com, I believe is the site. That list, no, wizkids.com/upm. That's Unpainted Mini, UPM, and that will give you everything you need to kind of follow along what's being released and what's available. I just realized that I am doing this a little wrong, folks. He actually, his inner kind of vest area, according to the reference online, is kind of a lighter color. It's kind of a white color. So I'm going to use the bone white to come back in here, which is way too wet right now. Use a little bit of my paper towel here to sop that up. Again, rinse my brush. A little too much water still on my brush, but I'm going to go in here and I'm going to base coat this again. This kind of inner vest area. Leave the belt the way it is, become just above here as well. Man, that is really wet. I don't know why. There, that's better. Just come in here and paint there. And I'll take this opportunity to also fix the collar where I got some of the red from his scarf. There. Okay. And let that dry, but that is a better situation, and it's closer to the reference. I'm a purist when it comes to the colors on these things. I like to do them kind of the color that they were intended, so that when my players play, it looks just like it does in the monster manual or the source book, in this case, Curse of Strahd. Okay, so we're gonna leave that color. We're also gonna do this leather brown color on his boots. I'm gonna use a bit of a bigger brush, let this one dry out a little bit. I'm gonna use my number 1, just because the boots are a larger area and I can get them covered faster this way. But I would definitely challenge yourselves, folks, to use larger brushes until you're forced to use a smaller one. You're gonna save a lot of time that way. Everybody was going to want to use very, very small brushes on this, and I get that, especially for new painters, because you don't want to make a lot of mess or mistakes, but you'll save yourself a lot of time if you kind of push yourself to use as large a brush as you need until you absolutely have to have a smaller brush to get into an area. It'll save you a lot of time and a lot of grief. Once you kind of get used to it, and then once you kind of get comfortable with your brush strokes and so on, it starts to feel a lot easier and better to use slightly larger brushes than you imagine you would. It's all about the tip of the brush anyways. Okay, so I'm also going to do his boots, and then his boots have like this metal plates on them as well. It's very cool. Hopefully, folks, we're already an hour in, so hopefully we can get these done in the 2 hours that we were supposed to do these. Even maybe in an hour and a half, we'll see. It's funny because the small miniatures are often a lot harder and take more time to do than the larger ones, because they're usually characters. And characters have a lot of different textures, a lot of different colors. It's a lot more precise, less dry brushing. Let's see how far we get here. We may have to get into two sessions, or maybe we can run this session over into Strahd, because Strahd is going to be only 1 miniature, so I won't need maybe the full time. Okay, so that is leather brown all the way around. And that's all of the leather brown I'm going to need on him. I did forget the I don't know how I forgot I thought I got it, but the cuff on this side, the shirt, and I'm just going to go back in and do this one again with bone white there. That is what Van Richten looks currently. He is almost pretty much completely base coated, except for his weapons here, pretty much. So I'm just going to put him down for a sec, pick up Esmeralda, we are going to go ahead and base coat her left boot in leather brown because her right boot is actually a golden metal prosthetic. The story goes that she actually got her leg from basically the under the knee and down, bitten off by a werewolf. And so now she has this metal prosthetic leg that she has learned how to combat with, which is pretty cool. But I am doing her left boot. In leather brown. Again, just base coating at this stage, making sure not to get it on the other areas that I've already painted. And base coat it as much as possible. So that is her left boot. I'm going to leave her right boot for now. She doesn't have pretty much any other leather brown on her, the entirety of her person. So we're just going to leave that for now. I may actually, you know what? I'm going to do her belt leather brown, even though I can't see it necessarily in the reference material. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going in with my zero brush with a little leather brown here. This is a perfect example of when zero is good. When the smallest brush you can get kind of does the work it needs to. I overbrushed a little bit because it was a little wet again. But there we go. Right on. And it doesn't show online either, so that's cool. Okay. Awesome. I'm glad that you folks are digging the music. That's great. I think I'm going to do that from now on. I'm actually trying to... hey, Shannon. It was good to see you at PAX. Steve Goodlet says that he got his third box yesterday and he's not allowed to light the sewer candle. I'm only allowed to pass it around to players to smell. I'm sure that is a house rule for most of the people who get our box. We have a sewer encounter in one of our adventure boxes, and that candle is not fun. But it's intense, and it's intended to invoke that feeling of being in a sewer. So I appreciate that and apologize to all of your significant others ahead of time. That's great. Oh, that's awesome. And yeah, if you pass it around for people to smell, it's just as effective. Hello, Melinda. Good to see ya. That's great. Question from Mikey. Jason, how many coats do you usually use to seal your minis? Does it vary depending on the size? One. I usually just do a decent coat. I'm using Glorious Gold. Getting away from myself here. Glorious Gold on here on her prosthetic golden leg. And then we'll use a sepia on there to really kind of to really bring out the detail. But for right now, we are base coating it in Glorious Gold. Base coating is always, obviously, the longest process for this stuff. Once we get through this, once we add washes and such, things will move a lot quicker here. But that Glorious Gold will really make that leg shine and differentiate it from the leather brown boot next to it. There we go. It's a really cool looking prosthetic. Okay. All right. That is that. Okay, so I think next I am going to I think I might go in and deal with her blouse area because it is supposed to be white, and obviously I've base coated it here with steel gray, and that's not where it's going to stay. we want it to be white because we want it to contrast her. I keep, this brush is sopping up a lot of water here, folks. So I'm just using a brush that I haven't used yet just to pick up the kind of pooling water that is there. So, okay. Oh, back to the coats. Yeah, one coat. I usually use one clear varnish. I use Vallejo matte varnish on them, and then they'll be protected from all of the player's hands and your hands as you kind of play using them at your table. All right, heavy sienna, folks. Extra opaque paint, base paint goes on in one coat. We are pretty close to done base coating here. I'm base coating the whole thing, both of them, just so I can batch paint them quicker. If I were to go and highlight everything or add washes to here and there, it would just take a lot longer than it is right now. So I'm using heavy sienna on her hair. It'll darken fairly significantly once we add a black wash. But for right now, this is the perfect kind of tone that we want for a base coat. And then we're probably not going to highlight it all that much, if at all. We get in around here, this side, that side, there, perfect. Oh, or I'll just drop her on the ground. That's always helpful too. I do that all the time. You ever drop your minis, folks? And that's the beauty of WizKids minis, is you can drop them and they're soft, so they just kind of bounce. They're not going to smash. Which I'm sure has happened with some of your 3D printed minis out there. They tend to be quite brittle. Okay, so again, being careful not to paint the red Rambo headband. And careful not to paint onto her skin that we've carefully base coated. And along here is where you really need to be careful. There's a little hair that comes off to the side here, and I think she's got some hair. Does she have any hair under her? No, under her brow? I don't think so. Oh, she's got a little bit. She's got a couple little strands of hair that kind of come under her bandana here, so I'm just going to paint those carefully. There. Sorry, I keep hitting the camera here. It's close quarters. I just want to get the camera as close as I can for you folks. And I'm painting the hair right into meeting her neck. Probably going to have to fix some of that skin. Well, not too bad. I'll get a little closer in here. I've also got a rogue hair on one of my brushes here. Now, you can see I'm bracing my hand. When I'm doing detail work like this, I'm bracing my fingers on the miniature or on my other hand just so I have a bit more control. Like that. Okay. That's what she looks like so far, folks. Just base coated. Real simple. Not too fancy just yet. Closing some of these gaps. You can see the primer. I'm also going to base coat her axe handle. That. It looks like her axe handle is kind of wooden the whole way. So I'm going to use this heavy sienna all the way down the haft and on the handle. What's the pommel of the axe? I don't know if axes have pommels, but that's what I'm calling this. Okay. Also, folks, keep an eye out for paint events in your stores. WizKids Vallejo and us at RealmSmith have partnered together to bring paint events to your local stores, where they'll send miniatures to the stores, and then you can follow tutorials in your store to paint with friends and family and all that fun stuff. So we're looking at doing some really cool miniatures, even some like pre-release stuff. So keep an eye out for that if you haven't done one already. Oh, see, and my fingers are rubbing off a lot of this heavy sienna on the hair. You gotta be careful with that. At this point, I should only be holding it by its base, because otherwise I'm gonna just wipe off all of the base coat that I've added. Okay? She is pretty much almost done, except for the metal areas. For Van Richten, or Rictavio, I'm gonna do his belt heavy sienna. Again, just to give some delineation, some contrast here, so that everything's not the same kind of tone. I'm also going to do the little straps inside here. This is not going to be easy, but I'm going to try and paint all of the straps he's got inside his coat area on his shirt. Again, not easy, folks. This is really messy. Not my best work, but I think the wash will help to cover some of that up, so I'm not too concerned about it. Okay, so I've done his belt, I've done the straps. I'm also going to do the handle on his cane sword. And I'm also going to do the other side of the handle on the other side of his hand. And then, of course, the blade of his cane sword is going to be metal, and the cane on the base is going to be heavy sienna. And I think I'm going to use steel gray on the base for like the stone ground area, just because that'll contrast nicely against all these brown tones for the rest of the mini. So I'm just going to go in and base coat the cane on the ground. I'm overbrushing it big time because so I make sure I catch it all, and then I can come back in and define it using the ground color. Okay, I'm also going to use the heavy sienna on this stake that he's holding in his left hand here. There we go. How many people watch the Dice Camera Action Curse of Strahd stream? It's very good. So fun. That whole series was really great. Okay. I've been considering watching it back, actually, to try and catch some of that awesomeness. Some of that Chris Perkins DMing awesomeness. Okay. I think that's it for him. Okay, so he's basically base coated, except for his base, basically base coated, except, anyways. And she is pretty much there too. We will do the metal now, might as well. So I'm going to use gunmetal as the base for that. Jason, have you seen the WizKids Deep Cuts Pit Devil? Yes, I have, and it's awesome. It is absolutely an incredible sculpt. All the sculpts from WizKids are really, really, really great. Okay. I'm going to use a bit of a bigger brush for this, just because it isn't really a detail area. It's an open area, so I can... Oh, let's just drop miniatures. So I can basically just paint along here. I'm not going to miss any of it. And I'm just using gunmetal. Bruno hears something. He's growling over there. You may get to hear him bark real quick, which is pretty funny. It's barely a bark. It's more like a an annoyed sound. I'm going to go in and touch up some of the metal areas on the, like they have some clasps and some buckles and things. We can do that later. Right now, I just want to base coat the kind of larger facets, areas of metal here on their weapons. So here we go. We're doing for time 6:10. I think we're doing okay. Probably get these done in one session, I imagine. It's always a challenge. I like to do, unless I've planned it to be longer like the Frost Giant, I like to try and get them done in one session. Oh, I forgot that her sword is actually gold at the hilt, I think. It is on the booster pack. Let me see if it is. Let me see if it is in the book, because I can't see the reference material. But anyways, head of the axe and the blade of the sword, now gunmetal. Let's find out. Esmeralda. I think this is Van Richten, yes. Esmeralda's a little earlier. There she is. It's not gold in there. Interesting, but I think it's gold on the back of the blister for the WizKids mini. What do I want to do now? Now I've got to decide. I think I'm gonna make it gold, just because I think it makes it stick out a bit more. It makes it a bit more magical and kind of valuable. She would have a pretty awesome sword, which she does. So I'm gonna go ahead and just base coat all of this in glorious gold. Go. I do like that the Sirenscape music that I'm playing really kind of closes in those moments of silence in between when I say something. There's not that dead silence anymore. It's great, I think. It sounds like you guys are enjoying having kind of the soundtrack playing as well. So, and I don't think it's affecting the volume in my voice at all. You guys can hear me pretty clearly through it, right? Okay, there we go. Base coated. Boom. Okay, so Van Richten. Here we go, buddy. Lots of sepia wash. So washes, for those of you that are new, it's painting. You just put a little bit of wash in your palette. This is designed to add a shadow and depth to your miniature by kind of seeping into the recesses and then drawing. So basically what we do is we're just going to brush this over the entirety of any area that is bone white or leather brown. I'm also actually going to use it on the red kind of ascot in there. I am diluting it just a touch because I don't want it to be super dark. But this is really going to, in one step, bring out all of that detail and really make this miniature pop, because it's going to basically accentuate all the detail. You can see right there in the arm how right away you're seeing all the depth of the texture come out. Very cool. I love this. I love this step and what it does to a miniature. You can see it's really bringing out that, and it also warms up that color a bit. Does a number of things. So we're not getting it on the hair or the skin. Trying not to get it on the skin anyways. I am using it to border the skin. So, but we have a flesh wash for the skin. So I am allowing it to settle in the recess between the skin and the clothing. But I'm trying not to let it get on the major surfaces of the skin. But you can see how that already is really bringing out that detail. I am also going to paint it onto the pants, because the pants are a kind of khaki color, and this is going to automatically make them a little darker than they were, but not as dark as the leather brown. And you can see how they kind of take the same tone that the, ooh, look at that, it's like looking in the mirror. Whoa, okay. It's Sunday, folks. All right. I also thank everybody in the Eastern kind of side time zones that this is your dinner time. So I thank everyone for tuning in during like dinner time, especially Sunday dinner. Those tend to be important for the family. So appreciate it, folks. If that's you, or if you're watching this VOD after, that's cool too, right? Family first. In my books, it's always a RealmSmith thing for us when it comes to things. Always family first. All right, so there we go. Okay, I'm gonna let that wash settle, but man, that did a lot already for the miniature and is really kind of making everything stick out. On Esmeralda, we're gonna use the sepia wash on her boots, or boot, actually both boots. We're gonna use it on the leather boot here. Not gonna get it on the pants, but you can use it in the kind of the recess between the pants and the boot. I'm also gonna put it on the gold prosthetic, just not as thick because the wash will go on matte, and so it'll bring down some of the sheen from the gold, and we want that gold to really come through still. Just drop her again. These small minis, it's hard not to drop them, but that's how that should look, and that's going to dry really nicely. And then sepia wash. I'm actually going to try the sepia wash. Oh, I'm going to do it on the gold of the sword hilt as well, or the guard and the hilt. I am going to use a little bit of sepia wash. I'm going to try it on the cloak, because I don't think I want, yeah, I'm going to use sepia on the cloak as well. I don't want to use black because it'll darken it a little too much and it'll be hard to kind of work that back up to kind of an orangey color, and sepia has a bit of kind of an orangey yellowy tinge, so we're going to use that to wash the cloak as well. This will put really cool shadows into the folds of the cloak, of the coat, and there's all these really cool kind of designs along the side which it'll accentuate, as well as this little sash in the front and inside the coat as well in the back. Now we don't want to get on the pants, so we just want to be careful to kind of brush it in there. Turn up the pace here. We're at 6:15. And again, it's amazing what these washes do to a miniature. As soon as you apply them, you know, up to this point, it's like paint by numbers. It's, you know, everything's kind of flat and kind of primary colors, and it's easy to sometimes lose heart because you're like, oh, this doesn't look that great. But as soon as you add a wash, all of a sudden things really start to come to life. There we go. She has a wash on her. You can see that the cloak is starting to get some depth. The shadows in that cloak are starting to show through. Some of the folds. We're going to let that dry. Now, washes take a little while to dry. You can see that he's still actually quite wet in the recesses, so we are going to add another wash, that being a flesh wash, to the skin areas. Fragmentee says, I recently watched all of Dice Camera Action. The Strahd arc was great and sold me on the adventure. It's on my list of must DM adventures. Well, hopefully our stream can kind of give you a bit of insight as well. But yeah, it was awesome. It was really, really great. It's a great stream. Okay, here we go. Flesh wash, and we're going to apply it to the skin. We're going to be careful not to get it on the hair. It can sit in the recess of where the hair meets the skin. Basically, this is just to bring out the detail in the skin, but you'll see right away that you can see like the folds on his forehead, and it will rest into his lips and nose area, and it will accentuate all of those details, which is what we want. We're also going to do that on his hands. The flesh wash tends to be a little bit thinner than the rest of the washes, so you may have to go a little heavier on it to get the kind of the effect that we're going for, but we want to be careful not to get it on the surrounding areas, just on the skin, and let that dry. We'll do the same on Esmeralda. Hands, face, her face will really start to come out when we add that. We're also going to add it into kind of the neck area and the chest area, but we want to make sure that we don't get it on. You can see how it's gone into the depths of her eyes and around her mouth and so on, and has brought out that color. I'll have to do our other hand here. There we go. Now we're going to let that dry too. There. Okay. This wash is actually drying fairly quickly, which is good. We're going to grab the blue wash. Again, this is another wash intended to add shadow and depth. I'm going to start moving a little turbo speed here, folks. Is anybody painting along with me? I know that a lot of you have asked for the the colors ahead of time, so you guys can paint along. I'd like to know if anybody's actually painting these miniatures along with me. If you are, that's awesome. If you're not and you're painting something else, let me know what else you're painting. I know some people take this time to set aside to kind of listen and all paint together, which is really cool. Okay, so just doing a blue wash, you can see right away I add it to the miniature and the folds and the texture just comes to life. They're like, it's one of my favorite things to do on a mini is to add a wash, because it really starts to look cool when you do that. You can see all that shadow and that depth comes out right away. I'm going to add a little bit of wash to, actually, I'm not going to do that yet. What I am going to do is I'm going to get some off-white now. That is another kind of layer color. Awesome. All right. Okay. Just saying hi to Steve here from Sirenscape. Everyone say hi, Steve. Okay, so I'm gonna get some off-white here, and I'm gonna use off-white to highlight some of her shirt area, but I'm actually gonna mix off-white with a little bit of that steel gray, just because I don't want, off-white is gonna be really kind of harsh, so I want to build up that highlight a little bit. So I'm going to mix it together so that I have kind of a lighter sort of color here of blue, and I'm just going to kind of get in here and just highlight that shirt just a little bit. Not a lot, just a little. Okay. You can see I've just used the edge of the brush just to highlight the shoulder of the shirt. It's already starting to look lighter. It's a white shirt, so we're gonna build this up a little bit. This is kind of one of the only areas that we're gonna be too concerned about building up with a highlight. But if we were to put off-white right on there, it would have been way more kind of stark and almost unnatural. But what I'm doing is I'm just using the edge of my brush to kind of catch the detail on here, like that, to build up that white shirt, like that. A little bit of water here. Catch it over here too, on this elbow, and just keep building it up. And what I'm going to keep doing is I'm just going to keep adding a little bit of off-white to it with every pass. And every time I get in here, it's going to get lighter and lighter, focusing on a larger and larger area, or smaller and smaller area, I should say. Sorry. Oh, got some on my axe handle and on the axe. Gonna have to go back in there and base coat that a bit, which is also why I didn't yet put a wash on the weapons, because I knew that this may very well happen, where I have to go back like this and just touch up that handle. But I think that's light enough for me for her shirt. It sticks out fairly decently from her pants, which is what I was most concerned about. I may come in, actually, what I will do is I'm going to come in with some pure off-white, just hit the most extreme kind of areas here. Extreme edges along the collar here. Yeah, there we go. It's hard to get in behind here, but it's working. There we go. And that'll look pretty white. That looks like a white shirt. Cool. Okay. Now I'm going to take some of that lighter blue that I created, kind of that lighter blue mix, and I am going to just highlight the front. The front of the pants is pretty much dry here. I'm just going to highlight some of these folds, just to bring out the detail a little bit on the knee here, where the light would show through the most. Just as a bit of a highlight here on these pants, just so they're not just two-toned. Just going to paint like that. Okay, that is good for the blue areas on there. Now, for Van Richten, I'm going to do the same with steel blue and off-white on his hair. And I'm just going to paint it in basically in streaks here along his head. I'm not picking out each individual hair really, but I'm just doing it in streaks just to get the idea that there is hair there, leaving some of that steel blue in the recesses. And I'm just going to lighten his hair ever so slightly with every pass until it's white, but we still have some of that steel blue in the deepest recesses to add some contrast there and depth. That's the first pass. We'll let that dry and then we'll come back in as well. On his pants, well, let's wait on that actually. You can see how that's starting to look there. Okay, that's that. Now that the washes are dry, I am going to use a Orange Fire dry brush on her cloak. This will bring that whole cloak up a bit more in brightness, and it will also give it that orangey kind of feeling. For those of you that have a dry brush before or new to painting, I've loaded my brush with Orange Fire, and then I'm going to wipe most of it off on the paper towel. I always say it seems a little counterintuitive to do so, but basically till almost nothing's coming off it, because you basically want it to deposit dry residue on the very edge and highest details of a miniature. You can see what it's doing already. It's bringing out, I need a bit more on there. It's bringing out the detail on the upper parts of her overcoat here. And that's basically going to add your highlight for you. Now we're probably going to dry brush with this Orange Fire, and then I'm probably going to go in with pure Orange Fire on some of the sharper details. But this will add some cool. And I want to do this carefully on, want to be careful on the, around the shirt, but I'm going to try and dry brush on all of the coat areas, or all of the red areas, I should say. Try and bring out that detail. It's going to be a little difficult on her headband. Probably going to use a smaller brush for that. So I've used a larger brush, obviously, for her coat area, and that is starting to look pretty cool. There, and we want to go against the grain, meaning against the texture, like opposite of the way that the texture runs, because we want it to pick up all of that detail. There. Cool. Don't drop your minis into your palette. That's always a good thing. I'm going to use some of this Orange Fire on my larger brush. It's not a dry brush, so it's not as rigid, so it's not going to be as good or as clear, but basically I just want to do this to make sure that I get a little bit of that orangey kind of color on her headband, like that. And then I'm going to go back in with my detail brush, get Orange Fire, pure Orange Fire, and pick out some of the very edges of some of this, of like the sharpest, basically the sharpest edges of some of this detail. I'm using the edge of the brush like this and just doing an edge highlight like this. Just working it down to really accentuate some of these bigger folds. Along the bottom here, and then I'm also going to run it along kind of the bottom here, and you'll see how that really comes out. That was a bit much there, but you get the idea. Okay. Also, I'm going to run it along the sleeve here because that didn't get picked up too much with the dry brush. It's too large of a brush, really. Also going to do it over here on this sleeve and a little on the headband. Like that. Okay. Cool. What, buddy? Bruno says hi, everyone. I have overbrushed a little bit with part of the shirt here, so I'm just going to take a bit more heavy red. I'm just going to touch up a little area there that I found on the coat. And I do this often. I'll finish painting an area and I'll be like, oh, I missed an area here, so I'm just going to go back in there with that heavy red right there. Just fill it in. No biggie. There. She's coming along. That Esmeralda, I tell you. Now, obviously, that red area is not going to match the rest. You can see how I painted it kind of in there. I'm probably going to go back and just wash that, or even just do a quick highlight with that Orange Fire once it's dry. I am going to add a little Orange Fire at the base of this. There. So that kind of sticks out, that little sash that comes down. And I think I'm going to go in, and this is a bit of detail work and optional for most people, but I'm going to go in with a detail brush and really kind of try to pick out some of this headband. It's getting lost in the hair, and so I just want to do a little thin line along the top area of this headband. Like that. Okay. Cool. She is not far from done, folks. She is definitely getting there. I keep rubbing off some of this heavy sienna on her hair because that texture is quite sharp. So I'm gonna let that texture dry now, or that hair dry, and then we're gonna do a wash with a black wash, and that's really going to bring it out. Let's go back to Van Richten here. He's looking good. I don't even know if I'm gonna do many highlights on his coat because you can see how the coat looks so cool already just with that wash. There's lots of contrast and there's many, even though a lot of the same colors are used. I am gonna go back in though, and with some pure off-white, start to pick out the edges of his hair like that and really start to bring out that hair texture. I'm diluting ever so slightly with water at this point. There's a rogue hair here on my brush that's driving me a little crazy, so I'm just gonna grab that. There we go. There. This brush has kind of seen had its time, so it's a little wet still. So I'm just picking out kind of, trying to not do kind of a all over paint with this white, but trying to pick out certain areas that I can, leaving that steel gray and that kind of the mix in the recesses like that. But it's really starting to look like he's got white hair here. In some cases, I'm just brushing the edge of my brush over texture, especially on the back of the hair here. You can see it leaves that steel gray in the recesses. There. That is pretty much as far as I will take his hair at this point. I am going to go ahead, though, while I have him here, and I'm going to take this off-white and just paint it on the bottom half of his glasses. So it looks like a bit of a glare that is occurring on his glasses. Like his glasses, they're catching kind of like there. You can see that. All right. I did paint over his ear again, so I'm going to go back in with some cadmium skin. And now we haven't done this yet, but basically what I do after I've washed with flesh wash, I go back in and I want to basically highlight the most prominent areas of the face. So I'm gonna go and just highlight the nose real quick and the chin and kind of the forehead here a little bit. A little too much paint deposited there. I don't want to cover all these lines on his forehead, but I want to accentuate them. His cheekbones here, like that, just to bring out the detail in his face a bit more. That worked. Now on his hands, I'm going to use the edge of my brush just to bring out his knuckles here, on that one and on this one, like that. And it's just a little touch. We're just touching on these just to add some further depth on her nose, chin, and her cheekbones. I'm just touching. The areas are so small that there really isn't a lot to do there to really kind of bring them out. I'm going to catch her thumb here and her knuckles on that side of her hand, and also on this side with a line maybe on top, just to give an idea of depth. And you can see her face. We've got some decent depth happening there now. All right. Okay, how's everybody doing out there? You guys doing all right? I'm digging in here to get her done. All right. Okay, so that is done. Keep getting some of this paint off as I handle the miniatures. That's always a difficult thing. With his pants here, I'm just going to go in with a little bit of bone white. Bring that bone white back in. We're going to highlight kind of his knees and some of the higher areas. At this point, we're just adding final touches. I'm going around the miniature, seeing what I missed, seeing what I didn't get in kind of the base coating stage, or what can be kind of further highlighted. So I'm absolutely going to use some bone white here and just catch the edge of some of these bigger folds. In his clothing here, like that. There. Just to lighten his pants a little bit. I'm also going to come in on the edge of his coat here, the inner coat area, because it's supposed to be lighter than his pants are, so I'm basically going to try and just touch inside there just to get that detail to stick out a bit more. And it is. You can see how his inner kind of shirt area. I love the way his coat looks. I'm tempted to do a bit of... Yeah, I'm tempted to do a little bit of leather brown again, just to bring that out. I think I will. Now I'm gonna just leather brown here on the edges. Might not be light enough, but yeah, it is. I'm just gonna do it on the top of his shoulders, where the light would hit. Little highlights of that leather brown back in, just to give it, again, further depth, added highlight. On the front, I'll do it on the back as well, kind of along the edge here. I may even mix in some bone white here to add a bit of a further highlight. Just following some of this texture here on his coat. Like that. Oh, that looks cool. Some of these lines here. There. Okay, there we go. Looking good. Also use a little bit of that on his boots, especially on the corners here. And then his boots have metal toes for kicking vampire butt. And so I'm gonna paint that on there. He's kind of got these metal kind of fronts to his boots, so I'm just gonna paint that in as a bit of a detail. You can kind of see the delineation here on the mini where that happens, so I'm just gonna paint that in on that side and that side. There. So a little metal onto his boot. And then he's also got daggers or stakes or something along his coat. So this is where we go in and we're gonna just catch some of these little details. The buttons, button on his pouch over here, the belt buckle. Again, you wanna be careful. I'm using almost the edge of the brush to do this, because obviously this is very fine detail work. There's like a little clasp here, will clasp on this side. And this really brings the final kind of detail of this mini through. Make sure I get all the ones on this side. There aren't any on the back. There's one over here. Any buckles on the boots or anything? Nope. Okay. And then the last thing is his glasses. Now I imagine the rims of his glasses are gold. So we're just going to come in here and we're just going to do the rim of his glasses in glorious gold. This might not show through all that clear, but I know it's there. Like that. In between his glasses will do as well. And I'm going to try and do the edge, the rim. That'll be fun without ruining the lens. Let's see if I can actually pull this off. Yeah, it's working kind of. Okay, there you go. So now he's got golden rimmed glasses, and he's pretty much good to go. I'm going to use a little bit of leather brown just to highlight his cane sword. Just dry brushing a little bit on there, as well as the stake that he has. Bruno, come here. Get out of there. Bruno's doing a little bit of a tour here. Hey, buddy. Maybe I'll... Here. And there we go. That is pretty much Van Richten done. He is, I think, good to go. I'm going to put him down, and then we'll paint his base in just a second. 15 minutes left. Haha. Okay. For Esmeralda, she's looking good. I think she's almost done. Last thing to do on her is to get the black wash. And we're going to add a little black wash onto her weapons. Add a little bit of water to that. The black wash again will just bring out kind of the detail in that sword and in that axe. Add some depth and shadow. Also going to add a black wash to the haft of her axe. Like that. Haft being kind of the pole part. Handle. There we go. And I'm also going to use black wash on her hair. I'd like to darken it down a little bit. And I think that will separate it from the rest of her and really kind of bring the texture out in her hair, which I think is important. I'm not going to add that black wash to the hair band because now the hair band will stick out a lot more because it'll be next to darker kind of hair, which is already starting to look decent. On top of the head as well. And then I'm not going to highlight that hair. I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm also going to just do it across the bangs area. Like that. And then what I'll end up doing is taking a silver and then highlighting the edge of her weapons. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on her eyes and try and give Esmeralda some eyes here. Now this detail brush I have isn't the best, so bear with me. But for eyes, I usually come in from the side here like this. And we're just gonna little line on one side like that. Little line on the other side like that. They're a little low. It's okay. And then we'll do a line kind of down the middle, or like a dot or a line down the middle. Got to make sure this brush is really dry. And I think we're going to use heavy sienna for this. It's the closest we have to black. Maybe actually we'll use a little black wash in there with it as well. And then we're just going to do the tiniest little line. Like that. There we go. Those are eyes. And then, just to close those eyes off, basically what we do is we take some skin color and we close. You know what? That actually worked out okay. I'm going to leave it like that. Basically, you can close in the lid afterwards. So you can come back in on the cheek and close in the eyes if you have to. I'm going to paint some skin above the eye on that side and that side so you can get the idea of the eyes there. And she is pretty much done. With 9 minutes to spare, folks. You know what? Because I have 9 minutes, let's get the silver here. Why not? Why not? Get that silver. And basically with the silver and my detail brush, I'm just going to go across the edges of all of the weapons just to give them a bit more interest here and make them look kind of sharp and magical and all that fun stuff. So there's some vampires to be slain with these weapons, and we want to make sure they look like they're up to the task. So I'm just going to go through with silver, being a lighter color. Make sure not to get it in the recesses like I just did. And I'm painting it basically along the sides just to kind of life and give them some more life. I'm also going to do that just to the tip of the cane sword for Van Richten here. And he is done. There we go. Okay. Man, we did that 2 minis in 2 hours. Maybe with Strahd, we'll be done early, possibly, or we just take our time with him a bit more. For that base, like I said, we can get some steel gray, paint steel gray onto that base, and then give it a black wash, and that will finish off your mini really nicely, and also will contrast all those kind of warm colors that are at the core of these miniatures. But yeah, this steel gray, which is almost like a blue gray, with a black wash, will look, you know, like a darker blue gray, and I think it'll look quite nice. Finish this base real quick. I'm not going to get a chance to do the black wash, folks, but basically, just the way you've used wash across the rest of the miniatures, you'll just go through and paint a black wash into this. It'll go into the recesses, and I wouldn't even highlight it after that because you want the miniature to stick out from the base. So this is the last look at Esmeralda. Not bad for a 2-hour job. And Van Richten, actually, I think I like Van Richten a bit better. I think it turned out a little bit better for me, personally. I'm going to have to get that cane sorted out on the ground again. It kind of got wiped off during that whole process. So I'm just going to do this, and then I'll go back in with my detail brush and delineate that cane again. But we'll just finish off this base real quick. Wow, it's been a while since I've used the full 2 hours before, folks. It's been a little while. It's been a number of episodes. Usually I'm done in an hour and a half. Okay. And there we go. And this is going to be the last look at Van Richten. Again, black wash on that base will really mute it and make him really stick out from it. And that is a wrap, folks, on Vampire Hunters. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you again for Sirenscape for allowing us to use the music that we are to really bring life to the stream. I think it's working out. Thanks to D&D for hosting us, and Vallejo and WizKids, of course, for sponsoring the show. Next week, again, I'm doing Curse of Strahd miniature. Well, it's a vampire miniature, but it looks just like the Strahd design. So we're doing the Vampire Strahd next week, Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And then January 6th, as I said before, we have our Into the Mist Curse of Strahd campaign debuting on our Twitch channel. That is January 6th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Kind of a refresh cast and a new look at our studio and a bunch of other really cool things and all of our awesome partners. Thanks, guys. If you like what you saw, please follow us on Twitch. Subscribe to us on YouTube so you can get the VOD versions of these. They're all already cataloged up there, ready for you to check out. And on all the socials, we are RealmSmith TV. Please, once you've painted your miniatures, tag us in them so we can see them. We love to see what you come up with. You guys have a wonderful night and the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you in a week. Take care, guys.